Welcome to episode two of my conversation with Larry Kirwan. Larry, hello.
Hey, how you doing, Leonard?
I'm not too bad. I'm not too bad. Larry, just to bring things up to now, what are you working on? You're a busy man. What current projects are you engaged with?
It's mostly theater these days. I do a radio show on Sirius XM once a week, a 3 hour talk and music show. And I still write a column for the Irish Echo. Uh, but the rest of it, apart from any political thing I'm doing, is to do with theater in general. Mostly musicals, because I kind of got the bug from when we got Paradise Square to Broadway. Um,
Yes.
so musicals in all their
You're,
forms.
you have a Tony nomination. Yeah, that is something you're really getting into. You're currently working on a piece on the lockout, the 1911 lockout, Larry. Do you want to?
Yeah, and it's weird how it came about. I can't even remember why I did it now. I've always thought about it, and I think it was I realized I was reading something about it, and I realized that I had the wrong impression all the time about it. I thought it was a failure, the
Oh,
lockout.
okay.
Yeah, that's kind of the way it's approached in the history books. They went down to Wexford. Uh, they had to go back to work, so Connolly lost. Then went to Dublin, and he lost the second time in the Great Dublin strike of 1913. So that was the way I was kind of looking at it. And then as I began to read just a little bit more about it, I realized that, that they actually had a victory celebration up in the Fight. And
Yeah.
I didn't know about that. I thought they just went back to work, and I didn't know that they were allowed to form their own union. That hadn't come out in whatever I had read about it. So I began to see it in a different light. Now, oddly enough, the big musical that I've been working on here is called Rebel Girl, and it's about a labor activist called um, Elizabeth Gurley Flynn, and who made her first speech in the Bronx when she was 15. And by the time she was 20, she was a national figure. And she got involved with an Italian anarchist leader, and they became the it couple kind of in New York life at that point. And then there was a tragedy in 1922. And so I thought, wow, that is a great subject matter. And so I brought um, Margaret Sanger, the birth control activist, into it, because Flynn and she were best friends. And I brought Joe Hill, the radical writer, into it, and an African American guy called Ben Fletcher that I discovered from South Philadelphia, who integrated the docks. He was part of this union called the Wobblies, right?
Mm.
So it turned out that Connolly and Larkin were both members of the Wobblies during their stay here. So I think that's what gave me the insight back into Wexford. I was thinking, wow, both Connolly and Larkin had torchlight processions through Wexford. And I began to study a bit more what was going on. Now, the weird thing about musicals is, I finish the music, and I don't write songs randomly anymore. So I hadn't written any songs for about, I would say, 4 to 6 months. And then you start to get worried at that point. Do I still have it? Do I still know how to write?
Mm.
And I'm kind of preparing for another musical. I wrote a novel called Rockaway Blue. It's set in 3 years after 9/11. And I knew I'd want to write more of it on the piano, but I'm a hopeless piano player. And I know the chords and everything, but I don't have the rhythms. So I wanted to get working, but I didn't want to jump right back into this big project, which is what Rockaway Blue would be. So I thought, why don't I do something as a gift to the people of Wexford for,
And,
I
do you
never,
think,
I
and
never
would
get
that
back.
resonates some of the themes, Larry, that are within that, like the struggles when it comes to labor, representation, dignity at work,
Yeah,
like they so resonate with today.
yeah. Well, the great thing that's working with Rebel Girl, why people are interested in it, is because we did a couple of workshops of it and performances, and the audience felt uplifted by it because there's been an awful sense of lack of hope over here with Trump running things. And
Okay.
people are coming up to me and saying, I feel the best I've felt in a long time, that the same things were happening back in 1912 and 1915 are happening that are happening now. Immigration issues and, income differences. So I decided, let me try something on lockout. And instantly, I realized that I was close to my three grandparents. My other grandmother died early on, but I was close to three of them. And each of them had told me different things about the lockout. And they were
Mm.
from very, very different points of view. My grandfather, who was a Republican, actually didn't like James Connolly. He said he was nothing but a little, where's the exact word? A little Scottish troublemaker. That's what he called him, a little Scottish troublemaker.
He
Because he
was
was,
Scottish.
yeah, he was Scottish. But my grandfather then realized, well, I always forgave him. I was a huge Connolly fan, always,
Yeah,
but I forgave him because he was a small businessman with
yeah,
with the work. And my other grandfather, who was very much more like a big Fine Gael farmer, that type. And his brother had been killed in 1915 at the Battle of Loos.
yeah.
So,
Okay.
so there was all this history. And so they were all alive during 1911. And then my grandmother, who lived in the Fife, was very much into her point of view on the lockout, and it wasn't the same as her husband's. So the three of them had very different points of view, and I was able to kind of go back in ways and do it. And I decided to do it also to show one of the things that was big in Wexford while I was growing up, and it was the end of it really, but was class distinction was
Yeah.
huge.
Mm.
I don't see it in the same way in Wexford anymore. It probably is there in much more subtle ways, but it was out in the open while I was growing up. And I wanted to get that in there too. So I used two characters. I wanted to be just easy to do. So two characters, and just do a 45-minute piece or a 50-minute piece and have part of it sung. And so one character would be a young union leader, and the other would be the daughter of a solicitor. So they're from very different points of view. One went to Wexford CPS, the other went to Loretto at that point when things like that didn't matter. And they had had a fling 4 years before, and they're now in their late 20s. And her father, he thinks, sends her off to London
Mm.
to to get into the bar over there. So they haven't seen each other for 4 years. Just as the lockout starts, she comes back because her father is taken ill, and she's going to help him in the office. So now they're thrown together because the father is the lawyer or the solicitor for the bosses, and the young man is for the union. So now they have to deal with each other, and yet the attraction's still there. So that's what the whole thing is about. And how can
So
they get through the class distinction, and her having lived in England for 4 years. And
is it a spoiler to ask, do they make it, Larry?
what do you think?
but
I can't tell you that. It would
but
be.
I think it is really interesting that you mentioned that, because I do think it's a part of our history that's not written well enough, the 1911, and that link, as you said, that piece that drove us towards the 1916, that drove us towards that understanding that we had to make a change, that there was dignity required for those that were putting in the work, the labor. That's the piece. And I think the story, or has the story changed? Is that still the fight?
That's still the fight, I'd say. Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, yeah. For the guy, the young man in it, he's more radical. So he's beginning to see that there has to be a change within society. Because one of the things that did happen was that the church went on the boss's side, but the friars stayed on the labor side. So even within the church, there was a split in Wexford. And my grandmother, being in favor of the strikers, she would only go to the friary church. And
and that
because
was
she went
that,
there, her husband did too. But, I always wonder, like, why did they go here? They could go they were from Balnaguy, which is just out on the new line a little bit. So a lot easier to go to Bride Street. Bride Street would be their church, but they always went to the friary. So things like that kind of build, and you can see. So I use that in the play too.
and it's probably it was very subtly done, as it was with those generations that came after we gained our independence,
Yeah.
wasn't it? It just, people got on. They carried, but they got on.
Yeah, well, a lot of the great people in Ireland didn't make it through the Civil War. So, Ireland had a lack of leadership, for a long time. And I don't know, has it ever recovered from it?
Yeah, there was a lot lost.
A
And
lot was lost, and
but
a lot is put in place when things are not happening. When there's an inertia, things build up, That's what I
would
was
you be
saying.
would you be positive though that change can happen? Because myself, I can think that from the 80s, the late 80s, even to the late 90s, how the country transformed. You mentioned maybe the grip that the church would have had, how that disappeared, or maybe pretty much did in the space of 10 years.
But it happened really, though, because of the child molestation, that people having to come to terms with that there was so much crime done. I remember people knew about it,
Yeah.
They knew subtly. They didn't want to ask, but they knew what was going on. I knew what was going on. You couldn't put your finger on it. And I was an altar boy, and nothing ever happened to me because I was with the friars. But, there were things going on. There was a hypocrisy that was happening. And I mean, I see what you're saying, that there was a great rush forward, probably because of money, people having more money and
Okay.
feeling more confidence. So I see that the two things were there at the same time. But I have to tell you that the one time that I felt really disassociated from Ireland was during the Celtic Tiger. It was like I actually didn't feel like coming home a lot of the time. There was just a crassness to it. And I'll tell you how I know about it, because at that time we used to play on Saturday nights when Black 47 wasn't playing around the country, we always had a place to play in New York. And we were playing at a big place called Connolly's. And the word got out with Irish people, let's go and see Black 47. And they weren't nice people to deal with, you know, as compared to Irish Americans.
I wonder, have again, equilibrium, have we found a piece of that? Because I often visualize that period in our history almost like, have you ever seen cows when they're in sheds for the winter, and when they're released from those, they just jump and gallop out into the field? I
Yeah,
felt
yeah,
it was almost a sense of that we as a nation were the people that were in the shed, and then that money piece, that freedom came, and we just really didn't know what to do with the energy, and we kind of lost the run of ourselves in many different ways.
yeah,
And but then that energy dissipated. The crash helped with that. But
yeah.
then did we have we found an equilibrium? Have things got back to something that you recognize, Larry?
Oh,
Or
yeah. And within years, it didn't take that long. It was like 2 or 3 years later, you go back to Wexford and people wanted to see you, or I used to have to make appointments to meet people from New
yeah,
York that I'm going over for a week. On a Thursday night, I'll be in Mary's bar, and come and see me
awesome.
there and do that. But I had to do that during the Celtic Tiger. Everybody got kind of self-important, and it was just a strange feeling that you felt um, you felt cut off from the society. It wasn't that with a couple of drinks it wouldn't dissipate and everything, but there was a self-importance that doesn't wear well with Irish people, with anybody.
I don't think it suited us.
It didn't, and it 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 really struck me in Connolly's looking at, well, we always had a big Jewish audience too, but Jewish and Irish Americans and Italian Americans, and then there hogging the bar were the Celtic Tiger people
Okay.
talking through everything, not listening, or not really communicating with the people around them, wanting to communicate with themselves.
Okay.
I mean, that is probably a generalization, but it's one that comes back to me a lot.
Something struck me when you were talking about the young woman in in the lockout piece. So she's the solicitor that goes over to England. The changes that we're seeing now going forward, and I don't know if you're keeping up to date with the whole AI piece, but that's the next piece that people are losing those jobs. Those are the jobs now that are probably in the next 10 years are going to be massive job losses. And maybe we're getting back to a place where the craft is going to become more important because AI can't do that.
Yeah.
It can't create the beautiful chair, or cannot mind the sick child, or cannot, well, hopefully cannot write the really good play. But I'm just wondering, are we is I wonder, are we moving to a place, Larry, of that struggle for labor and that recognition? I think so much of that struggle of labor is it about recognition of the human dignity in the person. Where are we going? Where are things going? As a man that's followed this throughout his life.
Yeah, I think you're right that craftsmanship will come back, and the need to prove you can do something that AI takes away. I've resisted it pretty much so far. I mean, I use it occasionally, not in a creative way, but it's good for business sometimes to track things down and to figure out things. But I haven't used it in any creative way. But uh, I would be heartbroken if I thought that I couldn't write a better play or a better song or a better musical than AI. That would be shattering to me. So I see what you're saying.
Are you optimistic for the future?
Yes,
Whether it be where you are now or Ireland?
I'm an immigrant, so I have to be optimistic. You had to do that. I just realized that not that long ago, actually, that you couldn't afford to get sick. You couldn't afford to. I remember one time I was going to buy a motorbike, and I thought, nah, everybody who gets a motorbike gets hurt on it at some point or another. I can't afford to do that. So certain things you kind of veer away from because you've got to look after yourself. So you have to be optimistic. You know, you have to think that I can do this as well or better than anyone else. Or I can do it not so much better, but I can do it in a more individual way. Or I have an individual way of doing this. And that's important. So if that was taken away from me, I'd still be optimistic because I'd be fighting it, but it would be a hard one. Yeah.
Because it is the piece that stays ever present. Like down at the lockout gate that we have down in the fight, that
Yeah.
was produced by Mr. Hodnett. Like that is something that is so evocative in terms of that piece of history. And now to
Well,
build to that, or would you think?
yeah, definitely. But what I often find, because I have a link to it, I remember
Okay.
Pierce's, and I remember the Star, and I remember, the Selsker one was gone by the time I was there, but I remember the men coming into work. I remember Pierce's horn going off, whatever it was, and you know, Wexford had a special thing. It had this manufacturing base, and I think it misses it.
Mm,
There was a thing about the self-confidence of the people, and that we make farm machinery here, and we make that. We have something special going for us, and maybe there's something that's taken over from that. But I see the Ewan McCall song "Dirty Old Town." This
yeah,
when I hear that song, I can see Wexford, and
it's there. It's so is that what you see when you picture Wexford, or is it your old friends, or like you talked with Jack O'Leary, and is that what you see when you close your eyes and picture Wexford? Is it friends? Is it the history? What is that piece?
well, it's always friends. Friends are the most important thing in life. Um, so you think of your friends, and you think of the good times you had, and the awful times you had, and how you really make fun of them when you were younger, and you hope you're able to still do that, you know. But then I think of Wexford as a living organism, not orgasm. Is that too?
Both are good.
All for the good. I can visualize Wexford, the history of it. The Vikings, the Normans, the Cromwellians coming in. The British Army being there, the people fighting against that or against it, the people who were in favor of it. It was a complex town because it was a garrison town, and it had a manufacturing base. So there was a good bit of money going around on a Saturday
Mm,
night. It was a great time to grow up in and play music in, because you could get a gig in some bar or other that would pay you, and you'd learn, because you had to, in the bars, you played the first long set, uh, you and whoever was with you. And then from then on, people would come up when they had enough drink to actually sing with you. So you had to kind of learn their songs as they were doing it. First of all, you had to find the key they were in,
right.
which is a great thing, just having to do that. You get really good at it. I'm not as good anymore at it because I don't have to do it. But I remember in Wexford thinking, I got him, and I'd look over at Johnny Reck, who I was with, and say, good man, you got it. You're there. Now, it's a pity you don't know the song, but at least you're in the right key. So you learned how to hold back for a verse and a chorus, and you got the feel of it. So going into the second verse, you were able to add a little more. And usually a Wexford guy, if he's going well with a song, he'll make sure there's 3 verses and 5 choruses to finish it up, So by the end of it, you had this song, and you were getting paid for it. It was a great learning experience.
Do you feel like you're part of that? Because it's still there in Wexford. You can see it. There's throughout the generations. There's always an emerging little music scene that's there, and it's I won't say it's unique to Wexford, but I think it is part of the identity of Wexford.
Yeah, and there's a huge. I can tell because I have a show called Celtic Crush, and I can tell the music that's coming out of Ireland now. And what really stuns me is for 2 reasons. One is there's no difference between town and country anymore, because so many people go to college in Dublin or Galway or whatever, and they come back. And so it's not like it was when I was growing up, that a guy from half a mile outside the town would have a different accent.
Yes.
Accents are the same now. So I see the rise that's coming in music, and I think Wexford people should really use the history of the place and the feel of the place. They do to a certain degree, but there's so much there, and it's distinctive, and it's something that will jump them forward in the queue,
Larry, I think that's a beautiful place to finish. I really am looking forward to seeing the Lockout piece, hopefully in the Opera House. Are you hopeful for is this year, next year? Do you have a timeline on that one?
It wouldn't be this year. They're all booked up. Maybe next year if they have the room for it. I think it'd be great to bring back that feeling. You can do all the politics you like about it, but when you see these 2 young people on the stage and they're wrestling with not only their destiny, and where they're from, but the class distinction between them, and what happens to the 2 of them at the end. There is a little bit at the end, and there's a boy soprano piece in it too. I was a boy soprano myself, so I figured that let me get a boy soprano into this.
We have to make sure it is on the stage of the Opera House. We need to get that on the stage of the Opera House.
Definitely.
So you have a song you want to, I think we have an exclusive, Larry.
Yeah, this is a song from Rebel Girl, and it's by, I wrote it and everything, but it's about a guy called Ben Fletcher, who was an African-American. He was the only African-American leader of the industrial workers of the world, who were called the Wobblies. But what he did was he integrated South Philadelphia, the docks, which was an Irish area and a Black area, and he got the 2 sides to join the union together and to integrate and work with each other, which they'd never done before on the docks. It was always an Irish thing. And so he's going back and he's thinking about his youth and the problems he has to face now with the government investigating the union and trying to destroy it. So that's what the song is about. It's called Struggle to Be Free.
Larry, I just want to say a massive thank you. I really enjoyed that conversation, that chat today. So thank you for that. And we'll play out on that. So thank you.
Pleasure, Leonard.
Take care. Thank you, Larry.
They told me back in Philadelphia I would never amount to much, less I did what I was told, but my lip and my mouth take what I was offered, no matter the pain or the price. Let your banner speak for you, only room here for Mr. Nice. in their so-called democracy. Listen to my people, listen to me. Got no choice but to carry on till we gain victory. Just gotta keep my head held high, raise our fist to the sky, stand up to hatred, you and me. Oh yeah, oh yeah. In our struggle to be free, to be free, to be free. Some say I am uppity, others they think I'm clean mad. To challenge the boss or the foreman must have been out of my head. But I trusted those around me, I guess they trust in me to lead them beyond the gates of hell, where free men long to be. In their so-called democracy, listen to my people, listen to me. Got no choice but to carry on till we gain victory. Yeah, yeah, just gotta keep our heads held high, raise our fists to the sky, stand up to hatred, you and me. Oh yeah, oh yeah. In our struggle to be free, to be free, to be free. So-called democracy, listen up my people, listen to me. Got no choice but to carry on till we gain victory. Yeah, yeah, just gotta keep our heads held high, raise our fists to the sky, stand up to hatred, you and me. Oh yeah, oh yeah. In our struggle to be free, to be free, to be free.